My wife smirked. "I've been sleeping with the neighbor for years." I smiled back, then handed her divorce papers, citing infidelity, when she realized she was losing everything due to our prenup. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine was practically frozen. I never planned to get divorced. Hell, I never planned to get married in the first place. But life has a way of surprising you, sometimes pleasantly, sometimes like a sucker punch to the gut. I met Catherine at an auction 12 years ago. I was there representing my firm. She was on the organizing committee. Beautiful, sophisticated, sharp as a tack. The kind of woman who commands attention without asking for it. We were married within 18 months, which my friends thought was fast. Turns out, it wasn't nearly fast enough. My family has money, old money as they say. Not private jet rich, but never worry about bills comfortable. I've worked hard to earn my own success as an attorney, but I can't deny the advantages I started with. Catherine came from more modest means, daughter of a school teacher and a nurse. This detail becomes important later. Before we married, my father insisted on a prenuptial agreement. He wasn't being elitist, he'd just seen too many family fortunes decimated by divorce. "It's just business," he said. "If she truly loves you, she'll understand." Catherine balked initially, but eventually signed. The terms were straightforward. In case of divorce, each keeps what they brought in, plus half of what we earned together. Unless there was infidelity, in which case, the cheating spouse got nothing but their personal effects and a one-time payment of $50,000. Fortunately for me, our state is one of the few that explicitly allows lifestyle clauses in prenuptial agreements, including penalties for infidelity. My father's attorney ensured the document was ironclad under state law with specific language that had been upheld in previous cases in our jurisdiction. She called it the Fidelity Clause and laughed about it. "As if I'd ever cheat on you," she'd said, signing with a flourish. "This thing will never come into play anyway." For 10 years, we had what I thought was a good marriage. We traveled, built a beautiful home, established ourselves in our community. We tried for kids, but it never happened. Doctors said it was unexplained infertility, one of those cruel mysteries of biology. It was hard, but we moved forward, focusing on our careers and each other. Or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there, if I'd been willing to see them. The sudden interest in fitness, the new wardrobe, the girls' nights that ran suspiciously late, the text messages she'd hide when I walked into a room. Classic stuff, really. But I trusted her. Completely. Blindly. Our neighbor David moved in about 5 years ago. Divorced guy, early 40s, the type who runs triathlons and renovates houses for fun. Catherine was immediately friendly, bringing over welcome baskets, inviting him for dinner. I thought nothing of it. That's just who she was. Outgoing, welcoming. I even suggested he join our neighborhood poker night. That's how clueless I was. Things might have continued indefinitely if not for what I call the incident. 3 months ago, I came home early from a business trip. Flight canceled due to mechanical issues, and rather than wait for the next one, I rented a car and drove the 4 hours home. I wanted to surprise Catherine, maybe take her to dinner. The surprise, as it turned out, was all mine. I pulled into our driveway around 3 p.m. Catherine's car was there, which was unexpected. She should have been at her part-time gallery job. She'd left her full-time position 2 years ago to focus on painting, but still maintained part-time hours at a local art gallery. David's Jeep was in his driveway next door. I entered quietly, hearing music coming from upstairs. I thought maybe she'd taken the day off, was relaxing in a bath or something. I'll spare you the cliché details. Suffice it to say, I found my wife and my neighbor in our bed, in a position that left no room for innocent explanation. They didn't notice me at first. I simply closed the door and walked back downstairs. Poured myself a scotch, neat, and waited. 20 minutes later, Catherine came downstairs. She'd showered, changed into casual clothes. She stopped dead when she saw me sitting in the living room. "James, you're home early." Her voice was steady, but I could see the calculations happening behind her eyes. Had I seen? Did I know? Should she confess or bluff? I sipped my scotch. Flight was canceled, decided to drive back. She nodded, seemingly relieved. "You should have called, I'd have made dinner plans." "Seemed like you already had plans," I said mildly. "Is David staying for dinner too, or did he work up an appetite already?" The color drained from her face. Then, something unexpected happened. Instead of denial or tears, a strange smirk spread across her lips. It was a look I'd never seen from her before. Part defiance, part relief, as if a great burden had been lifted. "Well," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "I suppose the cat's out of the bag." I raised an eyebrow, waiting. "Yes, David and I are involved," she continued, her voice eerily calm. "Have been for years, actually. Years." The word hit like a physical blow. Years of lies, years of deception under my own roof. "I see," was all I could manage. "It just happened," she said, the classic cheater's defense. "We tried to fight it, but there was something there, something I wasn't getting at home." I laughed, couldn't help it. "And what, pray tell, weren't you getting? Financial security? A beautiful home? A husband who adored you?" She frowned. "Passion, James, excitement. David makes me feel alive. And I made you feel comfortable," she said, as if it was the filthiest word in the English language. "Safe." I nodded slowly, finishing my scotch. "Well, I'm glad you found your bliss. How long exactly is years?" She hesitated, then lifted her chin. 4, give or take. 4 years. Almost half our marriage. I stood and walked to the bar cart, pouring another drink. My hands didn't shake, which surprised me. I felt strangely calm, detached almost. "And what's the plan here, Catherine? Were you ever going to tell me, or just continue making a fool of me indefinitely?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Honestly, I don't know. It's complicated. David wants me to leave you, but you're reluctant to give up the financial security." I finished for her. "Understandable. Love may make the world go round, but money pays for the tickets." Her eyes flashed with anger. "It's not about money, isn't it?" I turned to face her fully. "Let me guess. David's passionate and exciting, but his personal trainer salary doesn't quite match up to a partner at a law firm. Difficult choice." "You're being cruel," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "I'm being accurate. There's a difference." We stood there in silence for a long moment, the weight of her confession hanging between us. Then I smiled, a genuine smile that seemed to catch her off guard. "Actually, you've made this very simple for me." I walked to my briefcase, which I dropped by the door when I came in. I extracted a thick manila envelope and held it out to her. "What's this?" she asked, not taking it. "Divorce papers," I said calmly, citing infidelity as the cause. Her eyes widened. "You already had divorce papers drawn up? How? You just found out?" "I've suspected for some time," I lied smoothly. "Today just confirmed it. My lawyer had these prepared as a contingency." This was completely untrue. I hadn't suspected a thing until walking in on them. The envelope actually contained tax documents I'd brought home to review. But she didn't need to know that. The bluff served its purpose in that moment, to show her I wouldn't be manipulated or begged into reconciliation. Catherine took the envelope hesitantly, as if it might burn her fingers. "James, we should talk about this. Maybe counseling." "No need," I cut her off. "You've been sleeping with our neighbor for 4 years. There's nothing to discuss or salvage. But the house, our assets." She stopped suddenly, realization dawning on her face. "The prenup." I nodded, allowing myself another small smile. "The prenup, with its very specific fidelity clause that you found so amusing when you signed it." The blood drained from her face completely. "That's not fair. We've built a life together for 10 years. And you've been destroying it for the last 4, I replied evenly. "Actions have consequences, Catherine. You made your choice. Actually, you made it thousands of times, every time you slept with him." "I'll fight it," she said, voice hardening. "I'll say I signed under duress." "You can try. Your signature is on every page, witnessed by your own attorney who advised you to sign it. There's also a notarized statement from your lawyer confirming you understood all terms and signed voluntarily." This was true. My father had insisted on maximum legal protection. She sank onto the couch, envelope clutched in her hands. "So that's it? 10 years and I walk away with nothing?" "Not nothing," I corrected. $50,000 and your personal belongings, as agreed. That's barely 6 months of living expenses. You should have thought of that before playing house with David. I'm sure he'll help you out. After all, he makes you feel alive." She stared at me with a mixture of shock and fury. "You can't just throw me out. I need time to—" "You have 30 days, I interrupted. "I'll be staying at the Marriott downtown until you're gone. The house will be sold, with my share of the proceeds going to a foundation for infertility research. A decision I'd just made in that moment, but it felt right. "I don't have to leave. This is my home too," she said, a calculating look replacing her shock. I nodded. "You're right. Legally, I can't force you out of our marital home without a court order. But I'm willing to cover the security deposit and first month's rent on a new place for you if you agree to move out peacefully within 30 days. Otherwise, we can let the courts handle it, which will drag things out, cost us both more in legal fees, and likely end with the same result, your choice." The practical reality of her situation seemed to sink in. She knew the prenup was solid. Her leverage was limited. "You're enjoying this," she accused, tears finally starting to well. I considered this. Was I enjoying it? Not exactly, but I wasn't crushed either. Mostly I felt liberated. "No, Catherine, I'm simply enforcing a contract you willingly signed. You gambled and lost." I picked up my briefcase again. "I'll call my attorney tomorrow and have her prepare the actual divorce papers. I'll have my assistant arrange for me to collect some belongings tomorrow when you're at work. Please let me know your decision about the 30-day arrangement by then." As I headed for the door, she called after me. "You'll regret this, James. I'll make sure everyone knows what a cold, heartless bastard you are." I paused, hand on the doorknob. "Be my guest. Just remember, the same people who will hear about my cold heart will also hear about your warm bed with the neighbor. For 4 years. That shut her up. The next morning I called Helen, my firm's divorce specialist. I explained the situation, and by that afternoon she had prepared the actual divorce filing, citing infidelity. Catherine accepted the 30-day move-out arrangement, likely realizing it was the most practical option. The next few weeks were predictably chaotic. Catherine launched a full offensive, calling my parents, mutual friends, even clients of my firm, painting herself as the victim of a controlling husband who'd driven her into another man's arms. Few bought it, especially when the 4-year timeline came to light. She found a lawyer willing to challenge the prenup, arguing it was unconscionable and contrary to public policy. Helen, a barracuda in a pantsuit, shut that down in record time. The judge took one look at the evidence, including text messages between Catherine and David found on our shared iPad that she'd forgotten about, all legally obtained, and upheld every word of our agreement. Catherine's final gambit was attempting to destroy my reputation professionally. She showed up at a firm event, scene-makingly drunk, shouting about my supposed sexual inadequacies to anyone who would listen. My managing partner, a 60-something woman who'd survived 3 divorces of her own, personally escorted Catherine to a taxi, patted my shoulder, and said, "Take a week off, James. We've all been there." In the end, Catherine got exactly what the prenup specified, $50,000 and her personal effects. The house sold quickly, and true to my word, I donated my share to infertility research. I bought a smaller place downtown, walking distance to my office. I heard through the grapevine that Catherine moved in with David, but that blissful arrangement lasted all of 2 months before imploding spectacularly at a neighborhood barbecue where she discovered he was also sleeping with a yoga instructor from his gym. Karma works in mysterious ways. It's been a year now. The divorce is long finalized, the drama faded to occasional whispers. I'm dating again, cautiously. I've made it clear to anyone who might become serious that I'll require an even more ironclad prenup if marriage ever comes up. Some find this off-putting. I find it sensible. People ask if I regret enforcing the prenup so harshly. Couldn't I have been more generous, given the length of our marriage? Perhaps. But as I see it, Catherine made a clear-eyed decision every day for 4 years to violate our most fundamental agreement. The prenup was just the codification of that broken trust. Why should betrayal be rewarded with generosity? The strangest part of this whole ordeal? I'm genuinely happier now, not despite losing my marriage, but because of it. I lost a wife, but I gained clarity about what I want, who I can trust, and how resilient I truly am. As for Catherine, last I heard, she's working at a real estate office in a town 40 miles away, starting over. Part of me hopes she finds whatever she was looking for with David. The larger part simply doesn't think about her at all anymore. They say living well is the best revenge. They're right. But having a solid prenuptial agreement comes in a close second. Edit. Since this blew up overnight, I'll answer some common questions. Yes, the prenup was completely valid and enforceable in our state. Both parties had separate counsel, there was full financial disclosure, and it was signed well in advance of the wedding. Lifestyle clauses, including infidelity penalties, are specifically upheld by precedent in our jurisdiction. That's why her challenge failed so quickly. No, I don't feel guilty about leaving her with nothing. She had a lucrative career of her own but chose to leave it 2 years ago to focus on her painting, while maintaining part-time work at a gallery. Her lack of current income was her choice, not my problem. To the folks suggesting I somehow drove her to cheat by being emotionally unavailable, A, you know nothing about our relationship dynamics, and B, if she was unhappy, she could have communicated that or left. Cheating was a choice, not an inevitability. For those asking about David, he sold his house and moved shortly after their breakup. I couldn't care less where he went. And yes, I've had a full STD panel done. All clear, thankfully. Thanks for all the support from those who've been through similar situations. It does get better. Update, 3 months later. Since many have asked for an update, here's where things stand now. The professional fallout from Catherine's scene at the firm event was minimal. If anything, my stock rose among the partners for handling it with dignity. I've since been put in charge of our newest high-profile client, which would never have happened if there were lingering concerns about my personal life affecting my work. On the personal front, I've continued seeing Claire. The woman I mentioned was in my life. She's a pediatric surgeon, divorced herself after her ex-husband developed a gambling problem he hid until they were nearly bankrupt. We understand each other's caution and respect each other's boundaries. It's refreshing to be with someone who values honesty above all else. The most surprising development came last month when I received an email from Catherine. It was unexpectedly humble, an apology without excuses or justifications. She acknowledged the pain she'd caused and accepted full responsibility for her choices. No attempts to extract money or sympathy. Just a simple recognition of wrongdoing and a wish for my happiness going forward. I later heard through mutual friends that after things imploded with David, Catherine had hit rock bottom and sought therapy. Apparently, the professional help led to some genuine self-reflection. I sat with that email for several days before responding. Part of me wondered if it was the prelude to some new manipulation, but it didn't read that way. Eventually, I sent a brief but civil reply thanking her for the apology and wishing her well in her new life. Was it closure? Perhaps. I've come to believe that true closure doesn't come from any external source, not from apologies, revenge, or even time. It comes from within, from the decision to close that chapter and move forward unburdened. The question I get most often these days is whether I'll ever trust enough to marry again. The honest answer is, I don't know. Trust, once shattered, doesn't reassemble with the same pattern. The cracks remain visible if you look closely enough, but new materials can be stronger at the broken places, as they say. What I do know is that I'm no longer defining my life by what happened with Catherine. That story, our story, has ended. The next chapters are unwritten, and for the first time in a long while, I'm genuinely curious to see where the narrative goes. Life rarely gives us what we expect. Sometimes it gives us far less, sometimes surprisingly more. The only constant is change, and the only control we have is how we respond to it. As for me, I'm responding by living well, loving cautiously, and keeping my legal documents in impeccable order. Some lessons you only need to learn once.